Hey guys, Josh here with Retro Code TV, and I just got through watching the Battlefield 6 reveal trailer that EA dropped yesterday. So they did a pretty long event showing some of the gameplay, some of the new features of the game. They showed the story. But anyways, Battlefield 6 was revealed, and I've got some thoughts on it, and I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because I am a pretty big Battlefield fan. I've actually been playing the Battlefield series on the all the way back on the PlayStation 2 is the first one that I actually played. That was Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. And I've played all of them all the way up into even the latest one, Battlefield 2042. So the Battlefield series has had its ups and downs, and I've always been a big fan of Battlefield, but I've always liked the more classic Battlefield experience, similar to that of like Battlefield 3. Now, Battlefield 5 came out, and I didn't like it at first because they changed a lot of the ways that they changed some core gameplay aspects. So like even the way you upgrade your weapons, like in Battlefield 4, you could put attachments on them, and every attachment had its pros and cons. You may get faster bullet velocity, but now you also have more recoil. So it was really a balancing act on how you went about upgrading your guns. And then Battlefield 5, it just had this upgrade tree, which to me felt like a very dumbed down version of what we had before, but eventually I got used to it and I enjoyed it. And then I played a lot of Battlefield 5. I enjoyed it. It's still one of my favorite Battlefields. But then Battlefield 2042 came out, and they just totally changed the whole tune on what Battlefield was. It went from being realistic, all-out war type gameplay to I almost felt like a hero shooter, which if you like hero shooters, that's great. But to me, it's like that's not what Battlefield is. They brought in the specialists, and the specialists all had these voice lines. They were really cheesy, and the gameplay was just all over the place. You had gliders, and granted, yeah, it was a futuristic game, but it just did not feel like a classic Battlefield. And then the maps, they felt very unorganized. There was a very specific lack of cover in the maps. The maps were way too big for their own good, combined with just feeling empty. And then the maps just didn't flow very well. They felt very random. They didn't have much cohesion to them. That was a big issue. I felt like the maps just did not flow, so it really affected the quality of the gameplay. But these are all things that I think they have looked at and are looking to fix with Battlefield 6. So we'll just go over a few keynotes for Battlefield 6, some of the things I saw, some of the things I enjoyed from it. First off, Battlefield 6, it looks like it's going to be dropping in October of this year. And there's going to be 2 betas available, and we'll go over later how to get into those betas. I'm probably going to skip the betas and just wait for the actual game. But we'll see. I may try to dip my toes into it. But Battlefield 6 had its live event. They showed the multiplayer. And man, does it look good. Not only graphically, but the gameplay. It looks very reminiscent of Battlefield 3, but just on modern day consoles. They did a really good job with the movement and the overall feel of the game. It makes it feel very chaotic, but in a good way. It doesn't feel chaotic in like some other games where it's just a bunch of nonsense going on. It feels very much like all-out war, and I'm really looking forward to giving it a try. But one of the main complaints with Battlefield 2042, which I believe was kind of a flop for EA, so it looks like they're really pulling out all the stops for this Battlefield. Like they really want this one to work. They probably really need this one to work. But one of the things that they fixed that people were really complaining about is the specialist. So I think we are finally done with the specialist. If you don't know what the specialists are, they're basically just like characters that all have like personalities and voices, and they all have like special quirks, and they were really cheesy. They didn't really fit into a Battlefield game, but it looks like they're finally getting away from the specialist. They're finally going back to the class system. So Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. Those are your 4 main classes. And that's what I enjoy. That's what Battlefield has always been. At least, the most recent Battlefield games has always had just those classes. It wasn't until 2042 that they decided to go with I almost want to call it like hero system of specialists. And that was a huge complaint for me. It really took away from the feeling of the game and gave it more of an Apex Legends or just standard hero shooter or something. I wasn't a big fan. but it looks like they're going back to the class system. Now, one of the questions I do have, and I've got to do some research on it, is in Battlefield 2042, you had the heroes or the specialist and all that, but they also allowed you to basically use any gun for any class, which I was not a fan of. It's fun because you can kind of piece together your own super soldier with, any gun from every class and all that kind of stuff. But it takes away from the gameplay in my personal opinion. Like, you want to have your teammates to have specific roles, and if you can just have every team member can have whatever gun they want, then everybody starts choosing whatever the most overpowered gun is, and you don't get a lot of flexibility and a lot of cooperation with your teammates. Everybody kind of just goes off and starts doing their own thing. So in Battlefield 3 and 4, each class had its own weapon and own specific thing that they were good at. So your engineer was always good with fixing vehicles and taking out vehicles and ththings like that. Recon, obviously, for sniping, placing down spawn beacons. Assault was always just your standard, M16, and he's just all around, balanced character. And then your support was always your, light machine guns guy. He was giving you covering fire, throwing down your ammo. And a lot of that, I feel got lost in Battlefield 2042 because they allowed you to use whatever gun you want for whatever class. So it kind of just took away everybody's role, and it led to a lot of people just going off on their own and not really working together to accomplish goals. So I'm hoping they now are having guns locked to each class. So your recon, he's going to be stuck with his rifles. Your, assault, he's going to be stuck with his battle rifles and things like that. Now, they've always had subclasses of guns that you could choose from. So every class had its main weapons that was locked to that class. But then they also had some that were maybe some form of submachine gun or universal weapon that you could choose from for each class. But it still remains to be seen if this is something that they've fixed and left it like they did with the previous Battlefields, where every class has its own weapon set. I guess we'll have to see, but that's something I'm really hoping that they did do. So yeah, that was the first major thing that they seem to have fixed, was the whole specialist crap. They finally got rid of that, which I'm glad. And if you like the specialist, cool. It's just not something that I personally feel fits into the Battlefield series, but I'm glad that they are getting rid of that and bringing back the traditional class system. I think that it encourages more gameplay and more just, cooperating, and, it really fleshes out the gameplay and makes it more like your standard Battlefield game. They seem to have also included a single-player mode, which, if you don't know, Battlefield 2042 did not have a single-player mode. So it's very odd. In Battlefield 2042, they wanted to introduce all these specific characters with almost little backstories and with voiceovers and a lot of I guess character to them, but then they didn't include any kind of story mode. So it was very odd. Why would you introduce these characters that are very unique but then not do a story mode so everybody gets to learn and know these characters? But they're finally including a single player mode, which I've always enjoyed the single player modes for Battlefield. The Battlefield Bad Companies, obviously, those were always famous for their single player, story modes. Now, they didn't really give much information on the single player campaign. It could be really short for all I know. It could be really fleshed out. I'm not sure. But it was a very short, kind of teaser. It really didn't have much information on the single player campaign. But, they're probably going to release more as it gets closer to time. The game is coming out in October. So I thought they said maybe October 10th, but I know they said October for sure. So it's really not that far away. It's right around the corner. Hopefully, with these upcoming betas that they're having, they're able to address some of the issues and have a smoother launch than they have previously. But that's kind of a known thing that's going to happen with Battlefield. That when a new Battlefield comes out, it's going to have some issues at launch. There's going to be glitches, there's going to be server problems. But hopefully they can iron all that out with these betas, and hopefully they gave themselves enough time to actually iron out those issues if they do find any. So yeah, they have the multiplayer, which we talked about, and there's more to talk about on that. We just talked about the campaign, and they also have or teased a battle royale mode, which I'm assuming if you watch the very end of the event they did, they basically just teased what looks like a battle royale mode. A bunch of vehicles like fleeing like a fire wall that's closing in. So that's your kind of your typical battle royale, which is cool. It could be fun if it's done right. One thing that I really enjoyed that they showed, or that I'm excited about, is there appears to be a map maker mode, which I don't know how that's going to happen or how in depth that's going to be, if it's going to be similar to like Far Cry, but it looks like you're going to be able to make your own custom maps, with all kind of craziness if you want. And it looks like you'll be able to upload them and then play them on the community, which is going to be really cool if it's implemented right. I'm interested to see what the map making process is like, if it's super, technical or super in depth or very complicated, or if they have like a nice map making mode that's very, easy for people to get into and get creative with, because you don't want creativity to be, stopped by just an over complicated editor. So that's going to be really cool. It's basically like Portal mode, which I think might be making a comeback, but you're going to be able to make your own maps, and I think that could be really fun. Overall, I'm very excited for this game. It looks like it's going to be a classic Battlefield game, but honestly, this is probably the most excited I've been for a Battlefield game in a long time. I'm even more excited for this game than I was for Battlefield 4 back when it released back in like the PlayStation 3 and 4 days, but they've added a lot. It looks really, down and dirty and gritty. It doesn't have that weird hero shooter feel to it. They've added a mechanic that allows you to pick up a fallen teammate and then like drag them to safety and then revive them. That's just really cool. I actually like the way Battlefield 5 did that, where you didn't actually drag anybody, but you went through like a whole animation to, res somebody or heal somebody or revive them. And I thought that was really cool, and it really just added to the, giving the game a realistic feel. So I would kind of like the whole being able to drag people away. That might add some, gameplay elements. I'm interested to see how that works with the being able to grab people and drag them. Is it going to take longer to just drag somebody than it would just to walk up and hit them with a, an EpiPen and res them or something? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Maybe it depends on if you're playing as the medic or not. But all in all, I'm super excited for it. Like we mentioned earlier, there are going to be some betas available, so you can kind of hop in and get a feel for the game. The first beta is going to be on August 7th. That's a Sunday. And it's going to go to August 10th. So the first 2 days will require early access privileges, it says here, but the final 2 days will be completely open for all players. Then we have the second Battlefield 6 beta, which starts on Thursday, August 14th, and wraps up on Sunday, August 17th. There's no early access for that one, so that one's just going to be wide open for anybody that wants to get in on it and play it. So I may try to do that one. It seems like the first beta that is available, there's a few parameters or a few requirements that you have to meet before you can gain early access. So like I think one of them is like pre-ordering the game. Another one is like following certain like content creators on Twitch and things like that. So I'm probably just going to wait for the open beta, the second one that's available, that's easy to access. But let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for this Battlefield 6? What's some of the things that you didn't enjoy with the last Battlefield game? What's some things you wanted them to improve on? Do you think that those things will be in there? Let me know what you're excited about. Let me know in the comment section below. I know I am personally really excited for this one. I've been waiting for a really good Battlefield game, and I've actually been going back and just playing the old Battlefield 5 a lot lately. So let me know. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.